benefits of having T-cell responses along with the antibody responses with INO 4800, we believe, should provide a longer potential protection. We can generate a very strong, balanced immune responses, both antibody responses, which are important for vaccines, but also concurrently generating strong CD8 and CD4 T-cell responses, which is important for therapeutic indications, but also for durability of immune response.
Hello, that was Joe T-Cell Kim describing the secret weapon that Inovio will be unleashing. Since my last deep drill on the 8th of November, Inovio has released its third quarter earnings results, held 2 health conferences, 11 Twitter tweets, and released big news on more phase 3 approvals, and thrown in some massive news on INO 5401, VGX 3100, and INO 4201. I have listened to the recent calls and presentations, and I must say I am extremely gassed. And oh my lord, Joe Kim is, in my view, on the cusp of reaching legendary status should he and Inovio deliver on their promises to shareholders in 2022. So stay tuned for this deep drill and more. Keep it simple. Well. Things are really heating up right now for Inovio. I have not seen this amount of news and press releases since becoming an Inovio investor more than a year ago. Is it all smoking guns and mirrors, or are the fundamentals really piling up for a massive stock price run up in the coming few months ahead? The bear case I've seen for Inovio for some time now, and no doubt contributing to its decline in stock price, has been the authorization of many COVID-19 vaccines, and the fact that Inovio is late to the party and the world is being vaccinated. Well, just take a look at recent events in Europe, which is rather disturbing if you ask me. Well, I did predict in one of my first drills that I believe this is a turtle and hare race, and it is unfolding like this before our very own eyes. There's been more and more data on how the effectiveness, safety, tolerability, and immunogenicity of the emergency authorized vaccines that have come into question. This spells more bullish reasons why I believe when INO 4800 is unleashed, it will be the game changer and could set to destroy the competition. I ain't no financial advisor, I'm just a simple trader. So no more plugging, and let's start drilling. On the 9th of November, Inovio released its third quarter results, and we are drilling straight into the earnings call and the recent Jefferies conference to hear firsthand the highlights from CEO Joseph T-Cell Kim, and let's try to piece it all together once and for all. So with COVID-19 being here for almost 2 years right now, what does Inovio and CEO Dr. Kim think of the current market state and the need for INO 4800?
The global community continues to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and evolving variants of concern. Global vaccination rates are approximately 50%, but rates are still below 5% in certain areas of the world. Too many people are still without access of COVID-19 vaccine. Inovio recognizes the important role we can play in supporting the global response of this pandemic. And the world has really benefited from the rapid progress of the vaccine development. And I give all the kudos for the first wave of vaccines that's been tested and approved. And, but there's still a huge need for additional safe and effective vaccines for the world. And I'm just thankful that INO 4800 could be a major part of that. So we can do everything that messenger RNAs can do. And there are certain attributes that are different and potentially better than mRNA.
Great. Can you discuss those attributes that are essentially the pros for your platform versus the mRNA?
Yes, absolutely. So DNA plasmids, which comprise our vaccines and therapeutics, is extremely stable at temperatures. So we have a 5-year dating in shelf life in a refrigerated condition. We have stability data on 1 year at room temperature, and even at hot desert temperature, you can leave our vaccine out there for a month. So it's temperature stability, of course, is a huge advantage in global distribution and storage. Secondly, our vaccines are formulated in pure water with no preservatives, no adjuvants, no chemicals. So it's been demonstrated to be very well tolerated and very safe. And lastly, we can generate a very strong balance the immune responses is as similar to chemical drugs as a biologic vaccine can be. So you can characterize at each nucleotide and down to each chemical sequence of our vaccine. So that's a huge advantage compared to the traditional vaccines where, from lot to lot, there are significant variations from facility to facilities.
Okay, with all the press releases with regards to initiation of the Innovate Phase 3 INO 4800 trials, it can be easy to get lost. So, CEO Kim, give us a high-level summary.
Dosing for our Innovate trial is underway. We have received regulatory authorization to proceed in a total of 7 countries to date, which includes Mexico, Brazil, the Philippines, Colombia, India, the United States, and Thailand, with additional countries projected to follow.
Oh my lord, that is next level bullishness right there. But what about the timeline?
We're aiming to have the interim phase 3 efficacy data from this trial in the first half of 2022. Pending clinical efficacy data, the company plans to apply for emergency use authorization in respective countries.
Now, it is crystal clear to me that it will happen. I mean, why would these countries approve Inovio to conduct the phase 3 trials otherwise? I'm expecting some blockbuster orders in the near future. But let's let Kim expand a bit more on this, as in the end, this is what will drive Inovio's stock price to the stratosphere as a Part 1 explosion.
We think interim read as early as the first half of 22, and with that interim read of 50% efficacy. So the design is about 150 cases overall. So our first interim read is at the 50% mark of about 75 cases. So we expect that to be in the first half. And with that data at hand, with our extensive safety data, we like to go for an emergency use authorization in those countries where those mechanisms are available, and continue on the trial and be ready for full licensure applications in 2023, including in Europe and US and elsewhere.
What about some of the recent news regarding some approved vaccines and IP issues? A great question was asked on this, and this was the solid answer CEO Kim gave.
The IP issue seems to be flaring up again with vaccine manufacturers in the U.S. government. There was an article today in the New York Times, I believe, regarding Moderna. Do you have any IP, that overlaps with the U.S. government or any government entity?
We have received DoD funding on some of our device 3PSP development, but IP belongs to Inovio, so we don't believe there is any overlap. But that's something that we, as we work with various governments, including the U.S. government, we want to be very careful with.
Okay, and where is INO 4800 likely to dominate? Booster jabs. And what has Kim got to say on this?
The primary vaccine market is going to be shrinking. Right. So right now, globally, about 50% of the world's population have been vaccinated. What is going to be their year in and year out is the boosting market. Vaccines are effective in providing protection, at least the ones that are approved, but the immune responses do wane over time, whether it's 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. So there needs to be a booster. There are certain vaccines that are not easy to boost over time, like those ones delivered with viral vector. The body develops immune responses against the vector, viral vectors themselves. So there's some concerns about the formulations of some of the mRNA vaccines with the boosting over time, intolerability. Starting with our partner study with a vaccine in China, is we're going to look at various vaccines that we can boost with INO 4800. So we will be looking for additional booster studies with 4800, maybe the viral vector vaccines, mRNA vaccines, and protein vaccines. So that's really the path for us to really expand the potential market usability of INO 4800. Once we show our primary efficacy and safety, really what we're going to do is to look at the broad applicability in the booster market.
So there you have it. The Phase 2 game plan for INO 4800 is literally a takeover bid to all the currently approved vaccines. If this happens in China alone, the repercussions would be felt worldwide, as I'm sure the WHO would be instantaneous to jump onto this bandwagon, as with COVAX, who need to deliver so many vaccines to the third world countries. What about the massive news of the FDA approval finally? Normally, a biotech receiving an FDA approval would send its stock to the stratosphere. Not so for Inovio. And why is this? Simple. Inovio have moved away from the US by proceeding with the ex-US Innovate trials. When asked about the US, Kim appeared to just shrug it off. It's clear to me Inovio will not move in the US anytime soon, and that is for me the best move short term, considering they almost tried to shut Inovio down with the 1-year hold.
The FDA has lifted a partial clinical hold following its review of additional non-clinical, clinical, and device information provided by Inovio.
The news of the approval for the Innovate Phase 3 trials within India was absolutely monumental because they are not the first DNA vaccine there, as India have already approved one of their own. What Kim hints at here is what echoes my thoughts on this in my previous video.
I think it's a tremendous advantage for us to have INO 4800 Innovate trial conducting in India. And as Anza mentioned, there are many other reasons. They have a huge population with a need for additional safe and effective vaccine. Difference between Zydus' DNA and Inovio's is delivery. We use in vivo electroporation Selectra system that we feel has been demonstrated to optimize the delivery of DNA plasmids. We've tested this in tens of thousands of administrations. We've done a lot of clinical and preclinical studies around that. So we think our intradermal delivery of INO 4800 would give us a huge potential differentiating factor to Zydus' DNA. It's also perhaps more advantageous to be the second in their regulatory process through India. So they have familiarity of working with DNA vaccines.
So how have the EUA vaccines been approved so quickly, and why are Inovio not following in these footsteps and still conducting what they call a randomized trial?
Many of the other vaccines that are at this particular stage are just running that smaller study where they're just comparing it to, let's say, an approved vaccine on antibody titers. What was the rationale behind you saying, we need to run an actual phase 3 efficacy study to assess the efficacy of our vaccine?
Yeah, absolutely. The first reason is that the randomized placebo-controlled trial, efficacy trial, is still and has been the gold standard in clinical trial determination of efficacy. So we felt that we had the opportunity to execute that globally. Now, US is very difficult to do because the availability of approved vaccines, but there are many parts in the world where the vaccine rates are below 5%. And the availability of vaccines are still lacking. So we took that opportunity. We found different regions where we wanted to target, and we feel that we can achieve that efficacy data from the gold standard trial. Now, that's not to say the comparative studies are bad, but I think the primary choice is doing the gold standard of randomized placebo-controlled trial. And that was ambitious, obviously, with the closing window. But I'm very excited because we have not just one, but 2 shots on goal. One that we're funding with our partner of vaccine, a second that the WHO is conducting. So I feel very fortunate. And we're definitely taking this opportunity to do that.
Inovio previously said they would also look to include Africa in its Innovate trials, which would be absolutely huge, but we haven't had any confirmation yet. There was, though, a little hint at this.
We continue discussions with countries in Africa to provide us the greatest flexibility to enroll according to the ongoing medical need, the changing epidemiology of SARS-CoV-2, and the availability of vaccines in these countries.
These are just some of the key highlights that I've extracted on INO 4800, which has literally gassed me up to explosion point. But as an Inovian, I need to stay real and the entire company and its pipeline are also just as important to note, as it is not a one-trick pony company. But we will drill into the rest of the pipeline in a separate video, as time is of the essence. So I leave you with this statement from Dr. Kim, which should send earthquakes into the entire biotech space.
Inovio. I feel like Inovio is at the cusp of transforming from a pre-commercial R&D based company to a commercial company in the next several quarters. So this is very exciting and tremendous time for us, and I want to thank you all for sharing in these details and sharing in our excitement.
To summarize, for me, being an Inovio investor for over a year, having got into the stock at $12 and continually averaging down, I believe the stock currently at sub $7 really only has one direction it will go from here on in. The next 6 months should show us, if the results are in any way positive, an explosive upside. If you compare where we were 1 year ago, you must agree the signs and pieces are all falling into position, and I honestly say this, that I believe Inovio will rise up, and by 2023 we will see this company as a triple-digit stock. Thanks for watching, and please note, for me, Inovio is one of my highest conviction companies, and I see them as the game changer in vaccine technology moving forwards on a scale similar to Tesla being the leading electric car disruptor and Palantir as the leading software AI disruptor. So please take this drill with precaution and always do your own DD. If you found this video informative, then do me a simple favor and just consider subscribing to my channel so you get a pop-up when a new video is uploaded. I am a simple trader. I try to keep this simple and will simply see you in the next video.